Greetings in the name of Yeshua. Shalom to all of our Jewish friends and followers. Tonight, it's been a while since I did a video, but not that long. But tonight is an important one because it's an update. People are probably wondering what I'm doing and why it's happening the way it is. The videos that I was doing about people coming out of the church, out of the delusion and out of the false churches, that's completed. The choices are up to the individuals. The information that the Lord was giving me as warnings have ceased to come. He's given me a new mission, and that mission is to warn the churches that they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that is looking after the least in their unit, within their parish, their realm. And what he's done is he's given me a mission to partner with a gentleman, a fellow godly man of God, bishop. His name is Evans Bishop, Evans Pastor Makwa. And he got the same message I did. And we were to start up what is called, network. And the network is godly men, pastors, ministers. The job, the mission, is to find needy widows who are unable to sustain themselves, feed themselves, and do the things that are required for a normal life. What the Lord is called for, and there's an example for it, there's a reason, is for us to find them, raise funds for them. Not a lot, just raise enough money to start a garden for them. And that garden is going to be a door opener for them to come out of poverty. It's going to change their lives. First, it'll give them food, definitely. But more than that, the Lord showed me to explain that it's going to change their life on this basis. It's going to give them worth. It's going to give them purpose. It'll rejuvenate hope in their lives. And it'll show them that they aren't forgotten, that the Lord will provide for them as He promised. That was a difficult thing for a lot of individuals at the beginning of this that are working with me, to believe that a garden could change an individual's life. And when the Lord showed me that, I fully believe it. I fully believe what He was showing me, and I fully believe that what He's doing is bringing an awareness to the churches in the country, in Kenya, Africa. But it's also making an awareness to the churches globally. And this is what He showed me to bring forward as a message, as a warning from a watchman. And the trumpet is sounding because in the ecclesia, that is the population of the church, the assembly, and I'm not using the word church very often anymore because I have found that the churches have been polluted. Not all, but a good portion. In Kenya, and this was something that I wasn't aware of, but I am now, corruption rules from the top to the bottom. It has infiltrated into the churches and missions. Not all of them, but some of them. And it's become an industry to utilize orphans as a means of fraudulently collecting money from people who have a sympathetic heart for that. As well, one of the other ruses that are being used is a request to supply Bibles for Either they're starting a church or they have a church already going and they need Bibles. The other day I had a young man approached me online, greeted me, was very, very religious looking. And then all of a sudden it's like he's requesting 47 Bibles in a particular language of the country, and that it would only cost me $650, and that I could make arrangements to send that directly to his accountant in his church. What the Lord showed me to speak to this young man was there are agencies out there that will provide you with free Bibles. And I believe this particular agency that I sent him their logo online provides in many different languages. And from what I was reading on their site, they have distributed over a million Bibles freely to various countries. And this is what information I gave him. The other one about orphans, and I had a young woman who said she had an orphanage and was looking after a number of children and trying to feed them, and if I could I send them money and so she could feed a bunch of these children. And what the Lord showed me to speak to her was, if there was any land that she had available, turn it into a garden and start the garden and get it to grow. Something that I've learned while I've been working with this is that their turnaround time on a garden is 1 month, certain vegetables. Then there's other crops that are anywhere from 2 to 3 months. One is maize, and I believe it's a 30-day crop. But anyways, to make a long story short, that's what the Lord showed me to reveal to her, which I did and haven't heard from her since. What it comes down to, and what the Lord is showing me and had showed me, the mission is to bring information to the ecclesia, the members of the assembly, that they're lacking. And what they're lacking is the caring of those who are in desperate need. I'm not talking poor. I'm talking individuals, widows, who have no way of sustaining themselves and are fighting day to day to have a meal on their table, food in their stomach. And what the Lord brought to me was, and I know that it's in James, I have to look it up. I have to research it. But to feed an individual changes their life. And that's why I believe that putting a garden, and that's what he showed me, was to put the garden in place for these individuals. Now, I started the organization network. I call it Kenyan Network. It's just network for the Kenyans. August 13th. No money, but an appeal. And I I connected with the bishop. And it was an adventure over the next couple of days. He was hesitant, but was open-minded, and he said that he had received basically the same message that I had. And I spoke to him, and I said that I would do all I could to raise funds in order to, and I asked him, I said, what would it take, dollar-wise, to start a garden for a widow? And he come back and he said 50 US. So in terms of what it means for Canadians, I can't speak for other countries, but I can speak for Canada, because I know our messages get out globally. We've touched every continent and every country within those continents. And I know that it isn't a huge amount of individuals, but I know that there are individuals who are receiving the message, and what it means to them, I have no idea. But I'm hoping, and they continue to follow, so obviously there's food for their soul and their spirit. What I'm saying is that for $65 Canadian or 50 US, an individual goes hungry because they don't have it to start a garden. And I had a young woman from Peru walked up to me and gave me $50 when she found out what I was doing, and she gave me $50. And she said, "Here, feed somebody." Changed their life. And that money was used. It went in as a portion of the first monies that we collected to help the first woman receive her garden. Now that lady's name is Viola. She was probably in her 50s, and her daughter was working to maintain herself, had a child, and couldn't, because she was working as a maid in Nairobi, couldn't have her child live with her. So she's staying there and asked the grandmother to look after him. Well, the grandmother was barely able to feed herself, let alone the child. Now, one of the things that we look for is absolute need. And one of the things that we vet with or for is whether or not the family can afford to assist the widow. Because scripturally, that is what is supposed to happen. After we vetted, we found that there was no way that there could be any assistance for this woman. So we put the funds together, and we started a garden for her on August 16th or 17th. On the 30th, yesterday, or 2 days ago now, it's September 1st, on the 30th of August, I received a picture and commentary. Actually, it was a series of pictures showing that this garden had germinated and was growing. But it also showed me there was a note with it. And the note said to me, now here's something that I knew in advance, that this woman was elated about what was happening, and I didn't know to how much it had changed her life. The pastor who was looking after her, in his service last Sunday, brought me information afterwards, after the service, that she came to the church and was elated and gave a testimony of what was happening in her life because of the garden. And this church, now here's something that I'm kind of going around in different pieces here, because these events occurred and I get them in bits and pieces from the individuals that I'm working with. And this network, within 5 days in operation, information about the network had spread throughout all the churches in Kenya from coast to coast. The bishop, who is the hub, the individual who's in charge in Kenya that we send the money to and disperses it to the proper pastors to make sure that the work is done. And each garden is assigned a pastor to maintain and oversee it. The bishop, after 5 days in operation, after 5 days in operation, the bishop was receiving phone calls and inquiries about the network. How does it operate? Who's running it? Is it real? He was overwhelmed. Plus the fact that he was busy with getting this garden going and a few other projects that all of a sudden we were able to gather funding, and we were able to, because we were getting inquiries and names of other widows, and once we vetted them, we recognized that there was a specific need, and that was a need that we were fulfilling. The garden has germinated, and the change in the woman's life is phenomenal. She made a testimony of it in church, but at the same time now she is gathering firewood and selling it in addition to her garden. She has been restored. Her worth has been restored. She has value to her life now. She has a smile on her face where before it was forlorn. There was no hope in her life. Well, hope has been restored. These changes are dramatic because it's not only for her, but it's for her grandson as well. And the thing is that what she's recognizing in the germination of the crop is that there's going to be food on her table. And with that, the hope, and then all of a sudden now, she's stimulated to do other things to help herself and to help her grandson. And that's the encouraging part, is that she's now stimulated. She now realizes that she wasn't forsaken, because when I talked with the pastor, she was downtrodden. There was no hope. But now there's hope, and there's a different attitude, completely different person. We know that she is poor, definitely, but now she has purpose. The garden, and it will be continuous for her. The wood is going to generate additional revenue for her when this garden is reaped, because I said to you that the growing period is about a month. They can do 2 or 3 crops in their growing season. So that gives an advantage for this woman. Anyways, or for any of them. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to say that $65 Canadian or 50 American opened up a door for her life. And what this woman said that offered the $50, she says, you can have dirt, but if you don't have any seed, you don't have anything to eat. If you have dirt and you have seed, you have food. You have food to put on your plate. And she's right. It's a good analogy. And what I recognized in what she was saying was that there has to be caring on this end, on our end. Not only in Kenya, but globally. And what I recognized through the pastor, the bishop in his church on the Sunday service, he said he had almost 3 times the people coming to his church that he had before. And that is because the word is out in all the districts throughout the country. And it's not just in his, but in the country, this is what's happening in other churches as well. And I firmly believe that the Lord's message is going to go out and it's going to be met and firmly put in place. I've had 2 or 3 of the scam artists try to infiltrate and have women put across as widows and see if they could scam some money from us. And that came to a quick, abrupt halt. The Lord working, when you have a mission that the Lord is sanctioning and sanctifying, He reveals all these wickedness, all the wickedness and evil that is operating. Now, to make life even more interesting, there is a very huge pastorage that is being run, and I think they're concerned about us. Now, I'm not going to go into any details on that. But what I'm appealing to is I'm saying to individuals, the Lord's message, this is for all ecclesia, all the members of God's righteous church. The call is going out to you to recognize that you have been neglecting the needy. And what his question to you and your leaders is, if you cannot look after the needy, the ones at the bottom of the ladder, if you can't look after them, then how do you expect to look after the group, to look after the assembly, to make sure that they're being cared for? Because the destiny of the poor within the assembly is the destiny of the body of that assembly. Now, I notice that a lot of people are talking, the churches are dying and there isn't a really lot of, and we are under persecution. And you know what? I have to agree the church is, but understand something. The church isn't the building. What I'm showing these individuals and what the Lord has showed me to show them and bring to them information, because I'm getting inquiries, and when I discuss with these individuals, either via video phone or by text messaging, that there's a responsibility within the ecclesia to look after the poor and to look after the widows. There are things that these individuals They're reaching out to us in order for us to look after them and to do something with them. And what I'm doing, and the Lord is showing me, is to express to them one thing. Our mandate is to look after widows who are in dire need. Then, and only then, will we help. Anything else beyond that is a bonus, but it's done either through the pastor or their church. And what I'm basically doing is that I'm shifting it back to those individuals and saying to them, you have your hand out, but you're still not hearing the message. And the message is that you're neglecting those who are in dire need. And we have shown you what can happen. The Lord has shown you what can happen if you just take the time to assist them. They don't want handouts. They don't want pity. What they need is a way to sustain themselves. Gardening is that way. And one of the things that I'm appealing for in this video, and I'm going to continue appealing through updates and pictures and successes that we're having. Right now, if I recall, I'm going to go chronologically through my mind and recognize that there is three widows that are going to receive garden this following week. There is 3 young people that are registering in a school, going back to school because they were removed from the school because they couldn't pay the fees. Now, that was a project that was taken off our mandate, but it came through us for the funding to go to this pastor in order to get these children, because there was a separate appeal made by him online, and the people noticed it and they wanted to donate it, they wanted to contribute to it. And they did, and the money was passed. These individuals were fitted with a uniform today, and they'll be back in school. There is another young man, and this was another personal appeal. This is how the Lord works. He doesn't just stay with one little mandate. He extrapolates it. He moves. The people are moved. Funding came in to help a mother with a young boy who was born handicapped. Now, he was on the ground because they didn't have a wheelchair. Couldn't afford it. She was very desperate and is going to receive a garden. But there was funds came in through 2 women, one in Mississippi, one in Saskatchewan. Their funding came together and was enough for the pastor, the bishop, to purchase this young man a wheelchair. Now, there's addition to that story. Because he has a wheelchair. Now, you have to understand, he's 14 years old and has never attended school. And couldn't because he didn't have a wheelchair. Now he has a wheelchair and was assessed on Monday and approved and is enrolled in school because he has a wheelchair. First time he's gone to school in 14 years. These things happen as a result of the individuals, and I'm saying you have to recognize that because this is a mission that the Lord is on, has me on, and a few other individuals that have volunteered and are becoming a part of this, and I'm talking about other bishops within, or not bishops, but other pastors within, well, I guess here's another bishop, and pastors throughout the country that are starting to come on board, and they're asking for help. And our queue is filling up. And I assure them this, that I will do a appeal, which I'm doing right now, a campaign for them and their widows for funding to get them up off the ground and get them going. But I'm also saying to them that it's time that they recognize that they have to participate in this as well. It's not enough to bring the needy to us and say, oh, can you help us? You have to take a look at within and see what it is that you're lacking and why, and erase that and bring it to bear. One young man, this is an interesting story. He is an associate pastor with one of the churches here. Passed off a widow to us. We do vetting to find out her need and story and all the rest of it. When we were vetting, we found out, and she claimed that she was his mother. So we brought this information back to him because he was trying to fool us. And I brought it to him and he denied it. And I said to him, don't lie to me. Why would this woman say that she was your mother? And he said, oh, well, no, she wasn't my mother. She was our stepmother in our village. And there were a number of children that she was a stepmother to in the village. And I said to him, why does that make a difference? Well, how do you mean? She wasn't my mother. I said, yeah, she was. You have to understand, she was your mother from heart. She took it upon herself to be the mother that your mother wasn't. And she did it from the heart. She did it because the Lord called her to do it, and she did it. So that makes her as much as your a mother as your birth mother is. And according to Scripture, you, as an individual who have the means to assist her, should be assisting her. And it took me a couple of days of talking and some scriptures and more discussion. He sends me a picture of the garden area that he already had going. It had been in progress for 2 weeks and was already maturing and growing. And I said to him, so why would you do that? But this is what's going on in this country. This is what's happening. And I said to him, I said, you better be careful because you're playing with dynamite here. You're playing with fire. You could get burnt very easily because you're trying to fool God and you're not going to fool God. And I reminded him about Ananias and Sapphira. There are situations that we're fighting against. And one of the things that one of the other mandates, one of the issues within our mandate is to overcome all of this corruption. Somebody said to me, well, how are you going to do that? And I said, the Lord has another plan in place. He's shown me that. And I'm going to reveal it in this video. Is that while we're establishing ourselves as working with widows, He's also putting in place a plan for us to start gardens within villages throughout the country. And we would vet the village and find out how many individuals are in need, and then how many widows are involved in that village as well. And we would start a community garden for the poor and the widows combined. And that will be throughout the country. The purpose of that is to take these individuals who are being displayed by these, I'll call them crooks. They're using the plight of these individuals as a front to raise funds, and the individuals that are in plight, that are in this need, have no idea what's happening, that they're being used and utilized for fundraising to go into people's pockets and to parties and different aspects of life. But it certainly doesn't any aid come to these individuals. The country itself now has a reputation so bad that any agency that is a money transfer agency, if you do a number of multiple transfers, immediately become suspicious and put your money on hold until you can prove that these individuals are sound and safe and are not scamming. That's the depth that it's gone to. And the Lord is showing us that what we're doing, and as long as we're because we're going to be above board, we're going to be very visible, we're going to show results on an ongoing basis. The garden's growing. We're going to show the maturation of the garden. The garden's growing. We're going to show the harvesting. We're going to show the results of what can happen to these individuals. Now, the other plan, and somebody said to me, well, how are you going to remove these culprits? And I said, well, they can't be a culprit if there isn't anybody to front as being needy. And the more gardens we get available, the more gardens we have growing, and the more villages that we grow gardens in, we're reducing the needy. We're not taking out the poor, but we're reducing the needy. We're restoring hope. We're restoring value, individual value to the individuals within the village. One of the projects that got me started in this was that I got an appeal from a pastor, and they needed, I think it was, I can't remember the exact amount. They needed money to buy a sewing machine so that the women in the village could sew clothing for the needy and all of the women, but as well sew a number of items of clothing that they could sell at the market and create enough revenue from that to buy a second sewing machine. Entrepreneur or what? And that's what got me wondering what was happening there, because, the country's been devastated by AIDS and a couple of epidemics. Now they have COVID going as well. Sorry, excuse me. I'm sorry. But the thing is that, and I guess I need to pick this up a bit because I'm droning and I need to become excited about it. And I was excited and I still am excited. Because Viola, I think about her and I think, wow, here's a woman that 2 weeks ago was downtrodden and out of it. All of a sudden now she's got hope. She's vigorous and she's out there doing things for herself now that she wasn't doing before. There are others as well. There's 2 or 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 gardens that are maturing, are starting to grow. And we're going to follow up on those. There's 3 more gardens going in this week. The young boys are going back to, 3 children are going back to school. 1 child has received a wheelchair. The thing is happening is that God is moving in the country. He's waking up the pastorages. He's waking up the parishes. He's waking up the individuals who have been slumbering. And he's trying to show the world through our little feeble mission, through our mission, simple, but it's very, very powerful and impacting. It's changing lives. It's changing individuals' attitudes towards the church. More people are going and worshiping. More people are seeing that God is moving. He's moving in the country. He's moving. He's starting to make a move. He's doing things. Now there's pastors, there are prophets who are forecasting that there's going to be a global revival. Here we are. We have a movement within a country that has been slumbering. And it's beginning to wake up. And it's going to wake up. It hasn't even been a month. We've only been going into 3 weeks now in operation. Well, 17th to the 3rd, not even 3. 13, 14 days, 2 weeks. The Lord moves mysteriously, but he also, when he moves powerfully. The number of pastors who are, the number of pastors who are inquiring is increasing. The number of women that we're vetting for assistance is increasing. And what I'm asking for is support. Think about this now. One $65 garden is going to change a person's life. $65. Most individuals blow that in one sitting in a restaurant. All I'm appealing for is, and here's a fact, we use 100% of the monies that is contributed, less minimal transfer fees. That's it. There's no administration. We don't take anything from it. If you send me $50, there's $50 less the transmission fee of usually around $4 or $5. So $45 of that goes into the garden. And we buy seed and tools that are necessary for these individuals to have their garden. You have to understand that when we bring the garden to them, they don't have any tools and they don't have seed. So we go out, get the garden prepared with the tools that are purchased and seed it. And then within weeks, we look for the germination and we go from there. You can change your life. Now, you can also understand my appeal. As a watchman, I'm bringing you a warning. And I'm saying to you that there has been neglect through the ecclesia to those that are the least. Now, this appeal isn't just for Kenya, Africa. It's throughout the globe. It's throughout the world for the churches and the assembly to begin doing what they're supposed to be doing, and that is caring for the poor. And I know there's going to be pastorages that are saying, oh, but we supply, we send food, we do this, we do that. That is not the answer. All you're doing is trapping these individuals into poverty. By giving them a garden, by putting a garden and allowing them basically a way out, in the sense that they're working their way out of poverty, in that they have to maintain the garden. They have to look after the garden. Once it's started, that becomes their project. It brings worth back to them. It gives them hope because they can see that there's going to be food on their table. And it was food that they worked at creating. That gives a knowledge that they're capable, but as well, they also come to an understanding that there's someone out there who cared, who gave enough for them to have a garden and change their life. That's the big thing. And recognize, and I use it this way. I say it as this. And people are saying, well, you're monetizing it. And I'm going, no, I'm not monetizing it. What I'm doing is I'm telling you the truth. If you contribute, you become one of the instruments that God is using in this mission in order to change the person's life. Recognize what it means to be an instrument that God uses in order to keep his promise that he will provide for the needy. He will provide for us. He is providing to you as one of his instruments. Blessings and different things will come to you through your compassion and caring. It's not a reward system. It's doing what God is calling us to do. And I did an article today and released it. That article was in regards to this message that I'm saying. I'm not doing it verbatim. But in that message, there was Leviticus 19, 18, 17, 16, 17, 18, 19, all the way to 23, I think it is. But in that, the message was, we're not to forsake our neighbor. We're not to downbeat them, browbeat them, or do anything. But we're to treat them as we would want ourselves to be treated. Recognize that. And I also brought the definition of what a true Christian really is. And it talks about an individual being distinct, separated from the world, being different, having a different spirit, coming together as a family. We are a family within the will of God. If we're a family, then why are we neglecting those that are the least of our family? We need to care for them. We need to be there for them. And one of the things that it pointed out is that we wouldn't be where we are if we weren't chosen by God to be there. And because we're chosen, we become that distinct individual that we are. And we can only be there as a distinct individual because God has made us and sanctified us in His Spirit. Keep that in mind. That's what brings us together as a family. We get caught up in all of our worshiping and our systems and all these different, politics, political, church politics and all the rest of it, people politics. I don't have time for that. And I say to you in all sincerity, people, search your heart. Recognize that God is reaching out to you. And I said to one woman, she queried me, she says, well, how do you know that you're going to get funding? I said, I don't. But the Lord assured me that there's individuals out there who are caring and will care. He just hasn't touched them on the shoulder yet. They just don't know that He's going to touch them on the shoulder and say, hey, it's your turn to be an instrument. I thank you for listening. I really am hoping and praying that individuals will come together. And one of the things that I have suggested is a group, and you put a small amount, each of you, into it and contribute it as a tithing. Once a month or once a week, it's up to you. But what that will do is it will change lives. And somebody said to me, well, will you do the same thing in North America? Certainly I would if I had to, if people have a need wherever in the world. This is not just strictly in Kenya. It started in there. It's the mission there. But it can spread around the world. And I know that there are pastors in other countries. If they want to inquire, get in touch with us. I'm going to leave my phone number here. And as well, if you want to contribute, you can in Canada, in North America, I think in Canada, I guess maybe it's just in Canada, you can transfer me the funds. And all you need to do is put in my phone number, 780-497-0612. 780-497-0612. That will transfer the funds directly to the appropriate account that I have set up for transferring money. It's not a personal account. It's an account that I set up at the TD Bank to receive these funds. As soon as I receive them, they're assigned to a pastor, to a file for the particular widow, and that money is then quickly transferred over to the pastor through the bishop in Kenya, and the garden is begun. As quickly as we can get the ground dug up and readied, we put the seeds in the ground and we're looking for it. A result happen as fast as possible for these individuals. You're talking food. You're talking change. The other way that you can get funding to me is through PayPal. And you can send it to the symbol at Robert Rombouch, ROMBOUGH. That's at Robert Rombouch, ROMBOUGH, all lowercase. That will send funds into an account that I have set up with PayPal. That money then again is then transferred directly to the pastor, and not directly, but to the bishop, and then from there dispersed to the pastors appropriately. Again, I remind you, we do not take administration fee. There are charges that are transfer fees. Now, here's a suggestion. If you're going to send funds, American funds, through PayPal, recognize that they will try to exchange it to Canadian currency. You tap on the receiver portion of that transaction. A menu will come up and you can change it to American funds. That way there will be no exchange fee, so we don't lose any of the money that we would normally lose through having it exchanged to Canadian. It's very expensive. I think it's around 27 cents on the dollar. That way you don't lose any by transferring it as American funds. We recognize and know that all of the different currencies throughout the world We have to deal in American. Now, when I send the money to Kenya, I transfer that money into Kenyan shillings, local currency. The exchange rate on it is almost minimal. In some cases, it's pretty close to being zero. What it comes down to is that I try to maximize the amount of money that's going into the garden so that we utilize every cent and every dollar we possibly can to the betterment of the individual. There are a number, I think 6 individuals, 6 women who are in the queue, that 3 of them have been vetted. We're waiting for funding to help them. The quicker we get it, the sooner they get their garden. I pray that this will appeal to you, and that you will come to a recognition that you're helping as an instrument of God. And you're doing what He's called us to do, and that is to look after our family, those that are the least in our family. Thank you for listening. I pray God be with you. Father, bring knowledge, wisdom, and discernment. Open up their hearts and their minds, Father, for them to see that you're behind all of this, and that nothing that we can do is not without your will. I pray this now in your name, in the name of Yeshua. Amen.